Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasman. Joining me today is a brand new rock star. We were just discussing before we started recording. I have known her since she was friends with my kids, staying the night at our house, know her parents. I am so excited to have her on. She's a marketer, she's a speaker, she's Miss Ohio 2023, Madison Miller. Thanks so much for joining.
Kirby, thanks so much for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's super fun. And it's super fun to see the journey you've gone through as a professional. But, I think I want to dive in. You have represented yourself and our state on some of the biggest stages as Miss Ohio. So let me ask you, has that experience shaped your approach to sort of personal branding?
I think it expedited the process. Only at 25, I had to really get comfortable with who I am to be able to portray that across the board. So, for those who don't know, the Miss America opportunity has a few phases of competition. So, traditionally, people remember this beauty pageant they watched on TV in their living rooms, and it's evolved into so much more than that. You have a private interview where it's around 10 minutes or so where they can ask you anything that you want. You have like a fact sheet in front that you're very strategic on how you place little breadcrumbs about yourself to develop this personal brand, as well as an essay with a service initiative that you care a lot about. And those are the only things that they have, but they're stalking your social media, anything about you online. They can ask you, for example, I had a question. Let's metaphorically say the sky is purple. Tell me why that is. And I bring that specific phase of competition up because I had to be so solid in who I am as a human and who I wanted to portray to my judges at the local, state, and national level that I had to find ways to sprinkle those in all aspects of my life to make sure it portrayed in an interview room. That goes hand in hand with talent, on stage question, evening gown, and fitness, but the interview is where I thrived. And at 25, I don't think a lot of people can say that they knew who they were. And when I started competing at 19, I had this evolution through winning Miss Ohio where I figured it out on a very fast track. So it's made me a lot more confident in my profession now, working in communications. And even when I worked in corporate marketing in my past life, I just felt very solid in the human that I was because I had those experiences.
Yeah, that's a super great point. When we talk about personal branding, I think sometimes the foundational piece is exactly, like knowing not only what you want to portray, but being that. And I don't know that I've really thought about that. And I think maybe it's because I'm a little bit older in the journey, but I think that is a big step that sometimes gets skipped.
For sure. And I think one of the biggest components to that too is like you don't know, and this translates to the marketing world and to our salespeople specifically, like your clients and your target audiences, you want to be what they're expecting, but you want to have those breadcrumbs to get them excited to talk to you and the value that you can bring to the table. But you want to have that as a marketer in your conversations. So it's figuring out how to get them excited to talk to you in that hook, but also for them excited to learn more. Like what breadcrumbs have you left so that they have you meeting their expectations, but also they're excited to learn more. In my mind,
Yeah.
I feel like it's the same.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's also the places, those breadcrumbs, like you mentioned, those are the places we could connect,
Yeah.
right? Oh, you're into pickleball. I'm into pickleball, whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's okay. So we mentioned personal branding. So in today's world, I'm curious about how you think about this. How important do you think personal branding is, even for people who aren't public figures?
I think it's everything. Specifically for recruiters, I know Kirby and we just spoke kind of before we started recording this youthification of the industry. And that's true. I was running in your hallways as a kid, and now here we are talking about our professional lives.
Yeah.
But I think a huge disconnect now is figuring out that generational gap, whether in the workplace, you're trying to recruit younger people, or you're trying to retain this younger generation. And a lot of it is meeting each other where they're at. I'm trying to meet you with your interests, your communication styles, your work styles, and you're trying to meet us too. And I can confidently say that my generation and younger are on social media. And I looked when I was looking for jobs, when I'm trying to figure out who I'm meeting, like whether it's a new vendor or someone I'm getting coffee with, like I'm on their LinkedIn. I'm probably going to look up their Facebook. I want to
Of
see
course.
who I'm talking to and develop that expectation in my mind. Personal brand is everything, even if you're not a public figure, just making sure that you are available and accessible to create an expectation without having to say a word.
I love your example of saying, hey, if I was going to meet with somebody, I'm checking them out on LinkedIn. That makes
For
total
sure.
sense. I heard somebody say the other day, Rory Vaden, who's an author, and he says that personal brand sometimes I think gets like a negative connotation. He said it's really just the digitization of your reputation. And I
Yeah.
was like, I like that a lot because we all
Mhm.
have a reputation, right? Like, so if we can be intentional and just take that and put that online, that's a big part of the brand.
Yeah, and I think for my pageant life, I always think about intention, like impact versus intention, right? Like I might be posting something trying to get the best ROI or get my cost per click down, but the impact of that could be completely different. Like I could have the perfect ad that I'm putting out trying to get leads or trying to get engagement, but it could be great on paper and not be successful. So my impact is completely different. Whether it's something I'm physically saying or something I'm posting online, I'm always trying to think of like, okay, what is my intention here? And based on patterns I've seen in the past, like what could this impact be? And are those on the same playing field?
Well, you mentioned the pageants again, so I want to jump back to that. So, are there any lessons that you learned from competing in pageants that you think apply directly to marketing strategy or leadership?
People will not always remember what you say, but they will always remember how you've made them feel. It's something my dad's preached to me since I was a kid, but it was especially true as Miss Ohio. I would give keynotes to kids all the way up to adults in nursing homes, but specifically when I worked with military veterans, it truly is like how you've made them feel. There's communities and there's audiences specifically where your actions are always going to speak louder than your words. So when we are using our words to get our foot in the door, we have to leave that impression to make them want to listen, to give us that credibility without just throwing facts. Like, I could say that I'm the best marketer in the game. Okay, well, what do I have to show for it? Like, if I don't make you feel that way, like I'm a trustworthy human first, like that's not going to transpire. And a great example I always give now is I spoke at the Ohio Funeral Directors Association, and I opened with my presentation as, okay, I'm sitting in front of hundreds of funeral directors right now. What could Miss Ohio possibly teach you about becoming a funeral director? Like, I'm meeting them where they're at. Like, I'd be skeptical too. I totally made my bio like clickbait to get them to attend. And it was the most well attended course out of the entire conference. And it had nothing to do with funeral directing and everything about providing them a different perspective into their profession. So I tried to figure out like what value could I bring, and the impact from that still lingers, and it's been almost 2 years. So that's, I think, the key component is, we could say the most perfect things, but if we're making people feel like sterile and just kind of icky, they're not going to want to keep listening, engaging, doing anything. So we have to make sure we're leaving that positive impression.
That's really good. Okay, this has been awesome. Final question for you. And maybe this has changed. I'm curious to know if going into Miss Ohio, this was one way or if it's the same. But how do you approach social media personally? And what advice would you give professionals trying to grow their presence without losing their authenticity?
Mm, two parts. I think one, preventing burnout in yourself. For me in my day job, it's I do a lot of social media. Social media has been my niche ever since I was in college. And by the time I leave, the last thing I want to do is work on my personal brand. Like I get home, the last place I want to
I hear
exist
you.
on is my own social media.
I
And as
hear
a
you.
Ohio, I would post, it's this level of hyperactivity. And I'm somebody who's quality over quantity, but in pageant land, I had to leave those breadcrumbs everywhere. So I was really on it. But it got to the point where I'm like, what I'm posting has no value. Like it has no value to a judge, no value to a consumer. Like I'm literally just doing this for a number. So I had to recognize like, okay, great, I'm checking the box, but it's not doing anything for anyone. Like what's the point of this? And we have to, as marketers, take care of ourselves so that we can truly show up, because we only get one shot at that first impression. And if we're not taking full advantage of that because we're not taking care of ourselves first, we are at a complete disadvantage. And if somebody needs to like reshape what self-care looks like because of the grind of being an entrepreneur, like, okay, well, consider that productive, because if you're running yourself to burnout and you're producing low quality work because of it, like you have to take a step back, if anything, to be a better business owner or be a better manager, employee down the line. But I think the second part of that conversation into the content itself, I was just reminded out of a LinkedIn webinar I attended that when we're sharing stuff, if we have to think about how our audience is perceiving it in the sorts of, if we were scrolling on our feed and we saw it, had no idea who that person was, would you share that content? Like, did you find so much value in it that you were excited to share that content out? And if the answer is no, then why are you posting it? You know, if your content is not, I mean, granted, everyone has a different goal, but for LinkedIn, with your personal brand and personal strategy, you want to get out there. So if you're sharing content that's not giving value, you're not leaving those breadcrumbs, then why are we putting it out there? So those are the two parts. I'm always thinking of, what value is this bringing? And sometimes it's just like silly, goofy, funny. Like I feel this way and I want to share with the world, and that's how I'm gonna do it. But I really feel like being strategic with those breadcrumbs that you're leaving to build that digital first impression is so important.
Yeah, the thing that I kind of hear you saying, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this, but
Mhm.
it's like intentionality, right? Like you are intentional about what you're putting out. It's not just haphazard. And I think when we are intentional about who we are, then we're
Mhm.
intentional about what the story we want to tell. I think that that's when we can get more outsized results, if that makes sense.
For sure. And if you stalked all of my social media right now, I'm definitely not practicing any of that right now. There's so much life happening. I just told you that too. Like, I'm waiting for it to slow down, and I'm recognizing I'm in a phase of life that is not slow. Like, I just got married. I bought a house actually in the same day.
Yeah,
So
sure.
adjusting to all of this life, and I have not given myself that grace. So I'm in the period of recognizing, well, not, I guess the first step is acknowledgement. Maybe this is my acknowledgement of, okay, I'm here. I'm probably in that bit of burnout. So I'm going to take a step back. And then when I feel like I have my feet back under me, hit a little bit harder with all of the things I've been talking about.
Well, so just people are going to push back if I don't bring it up. So you bought a house and got married on the same day?
Yeah, yeah, yep. After being Miss Ohio, just my entire life has been public. I'm the daughter of a small business owner in a reputation based industry, being a funeral home. And ever since I was 11, I remember being told that all of my actions would reflect our family business. And then being Miss Ohio, I had this like bigger spotlight on every movement I made, every social media post. Like if I went dark on social for 3 days, people were reaching out to my loved ones, like, "Hey, is Maddie okay?" And I was
Yeah.
literally just like taking a break.
Yeah.
So I wanted some of my bigger life moments selfishly to be myself. So after we closed on a house, my dad's a wedding officiant, and I drove to see my dad, and he married us, and we kept it a secret for 2 months. And then I broke the internet with it when I felt like I had enough time to keep it to myself.
That's super
Yep.
cool. So, and I will say, Madison is an amazing speaker. So, if you are interested, she would be great. Where can folks find you?
Yeah, so for any sort of like speaking inquiry or anything, you can do booking madisonmiller@gmail.com. But I would love to connect on LinkedIn. So that's linkedin.com/Madison or marketing dash Madison. Um, I will say my married name and my legal name are different, and I work in the government. So my legal name is Madison Miller, but you'll see Madison Sarver on other socials as well. So it's kind of like a two-sided alias there, but linkedin.com/marketing dash Madison.
Love it. All right, Madison, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time. And it was such a pleasure to watch you go through that journey. I know probably crazy for you, but it was fun as somebody who has known you for a long time. So it's really cool.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, you and Hossman Marketing and Simple Signs and Print have been huge supporters of mine. I've been a client with you guys with my nonprofit, and I feel very fortunate to grow up in a town where you guys have been a huge presence in pushing forward just the absolute love for our community. So I appreciate everything you've done.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. That's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.
See ya.